When broken becomes beautiful, transforming pain into purpose. Have you ever looked at your scars and wondered if they could be something more than just reminders of pain? What if the very things that broke you could become the foundation for something extraordinary? I recently had the privilege of interviewing Yolanda Davis, a woman whose life story redefines what it means to transform adversity into advocacy. Yolanda isn't just inspiring, she's revolutionary. As a motivational spoken word artist living with multiple sclerosis and a survivor of abuse, she stands before audiences not despite her challenges, but because of how they've shaped her vision and voice. Her work has touched thousands, creating ripples of healing in communities where pain often goes unacknowledged. She embodies what happens when someone refuses to be defined by their circumstances and instead uses them as fuel for transformation. The first time I heard Yolanda speak, the air in the room changed. There was that rare electric quality that emerges only when someone has walked through fire and returned not just intact, but somehow more luminous. Pain, Yolanda told me with a slight smile that held volumes of lived experience, is inevitable, but becoming bitter is optional. Those words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Because isn't that the fundamental choice we all face when life deals us a difficult hand? Do we allow our wounds to harden us, or do we find ways to let the light shine through our cracks? The journey from victim to victor isn't a straight line on a map. It's messy, contradictory, and deeply personal. Some days you're climbing mountains, and other days you're barely crawling out of bed. But as I've learned from Yolanda and others like her, it's a path worth taking, however long it takes to travel. Consider Victoria Reese, founder of We Are Ill. Diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in her 20s, Victoria encountered what many Black women with chronic illness face: misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis, dismissal of symptoms, isolation in waiting rooms where no one looked like her. The healthcare system, with its well documented disparities in how it treats Black women's pain, failed her repeatedly before she received proper care. But Victoria didn't just accept this reality, she transformed it. After years working in marketing, an industry where diversity often feels like an afterthought, Victoria leveraged her professional skills to create something revolutionary: an online community where Black women with MS could share their experiences without shame or stigma. We Are Ill has since grown into a national movement advocating for better care and visibility for people of color living with chronic illness. What Victoria understood, what Yolanda lives, is that our deepest wounds often reveal our most powerful purpose. This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending that suffering is somehow a gift wrapped in pretty paper. It's about recognizing that sometimes the very experiences that break us open can create space for something new to emerge. I'm reminded of those Japanese artisans who repair broken pottery with gold, kintsugi, they call it. The philosophy behind it is that breakage and repair become part of the object's history, not something to disguise, but something to highlight with precious metal. The piece becomes more beautiful, more valuable for having been broken. Tiffany Johnson embodies this truth as well. A spoken word artist from Atlanta, Tiffany navigates both the physical limitations of lupus and the emotional aftermath of childhood abuse. Poetry became her lifeline, first as personal therapy, then as a platform to reach others. I started writing because I couldn't breathe, she once said in an interview. I kept performing because I realized other people couldn't breathe either. Today, Tiffany performs across the country, But perhaps her most important work happens in the workshops she leads, teaching young survivors how creative expression can foster healing. Her words don't erase her pain, but they transform it into something that serves rather than destroys. Sometimes Tiffany says the most powerful thing you can do with your suffering is to use it to ensure someone else suffers less. This is the alchemy that Yolanda Davis practices, turning the lead of life's heaviest moments into gold that others can carry forward. But let's be honest, this transformation isn't easy, and it certainly isn't automatic. It requires intention, community, and a willingness to reimagine what healing looks like. For Keisha Greaves, founder of Girls Chronically Rock, that reimagining took the form of fashion. Living with muscular dystrophy herself, Keisha created a clothing brand featuring empowering messages specifically targeting women of color entrepreneurs and professionals with disabilities. Her apparel doesn't just cover bodies, it celebrates them, challenges perceptions about them, and creates visibility for communities often pushed to the margins. What strikes me about these women, Yolanda, Victoria, Tiffany, Keisha, is how they've refused to compartmentalize their experiences. They don't leave their illnesses or traumas at home when they step into professional spaces. Instead, they've integrated these realities into their work, creating businesses and art that address the whole person. This integration is revolutionary in a world that often asks us, especially as Black women, to fragment ourselves for others' comfort. We're told to be strong, but not angry, professional, but not too ethnic, vulnerable, but never broken. Yolanda challenges this fragmentation. Her work as an educator and spoken word artist doesn't happen despite her MS or her history of abuse. It's informed by these experiences, made richer and more impactful because of them. The parts of yourself you're tempted to hide, Yolanda shared during our conversation, might be exactly what someone else needs to see to feel less alone. This visibility matters. When Yolanda stands before an audience, she's not just sharing her story, she's creating space for others to recognize and reclaim their own. She's demonstrating that resilience isn't about pretending you haven't been hurt, it's about acknowledging the hurt and choosing to grow through it anyway. But individual resilience isn't enough. What these women understand, what Yolanda emphasizes, is the power of community in the healing process. Victoria's We Are Ill provides more than information, it offers belonging. Tiffany's workshops create more than art, they foster connection. Keisha's clothing line delivers more than fashion, it builds identity and solidarity. This is the second crucial element in transforming pain into purpose, recognizing that we heal better together than alone. For Black women, especially, this community aspect is vital. In professional spaces where we're often underrepresented, in healthcare systems that frequently dismiss our pain, in a society that both fetishizes and punishes our strength, finding others who see and affirm our full humanity isn't just comforting, it's revolutionary. Yolanda's emphasis on supporting fellow small business owners, particularly within the Black community, stems from this understanding. Economic empowerment and emotional healing aren't separate pursuits, they're interconnected paths toward wholeness. When we lift as we climb, Yolanda notes, we create ecosystems of support that make everyone stronger. But perhaps the most profound aspect of Yolanda's message is how she reframes the very concept of brokenness itself. What if our scars aren't shameful but sacred? What if our struggles aren't punishments but portals to deeper purpose. I'm not suggesting that chronic illness or trauma are somehow blessings in disguise. That would be both insensitive and untrue. Pain is pain, loss is loss, injustice is injustice. But I am suggesting, as Yolanda does through her life and work, that these experiences don't have to be the end of our story. They can be powerful beginnings if we're brave enough to reimagine them. This reimagining isn't about denying reality, but about expanding it. It's about recognizing that even in our brokenness, we remain worthy of love, capable of growth, and qualified to lead. For Black women navigating professional spaces while managing chronic illness or processing trauma, this message is particularly powerful. In a world quick to label us as too much or not enough, claiming our whole selves, scars and all, is an act of revolution. So, where does this leave us? What can we learn from Yolanda and women like her who have alchemized their pain into purpose? First, that resilience isn't about bouncing back to who you were before trauma or illness. It's about growing into someone new, someone perhaps more compassionate, more authentic, more intentional about how you spend your precious energy. Second, that community isn't optional, but essential. None of these women transformed their pain into purpose alone. They found others who could witness their struggles, celebrate their victories, and walk alongside them through both. And finally, that our deepest wounds often reveal our most powerful gifts to the world, not because suffering is somehow noble, but because navigating difficulty with grace teaches us wisdom that can't be learned any other way. Today, I challenge you to look at your own scars differently. Those places where life has broken you open, what light might they let in? What wisdom have they taught you that you couldn't have learned any other way? I challenge you to take one step toward transforming your pain into purpose. Perhaps it's reaching out to someone facing similar challenges. Maybe it's starting that project you've been thinking about that could help others. Or maybe it's simply being more honest about your journey, creating space for authentic connection rather than performing perfection. Whatever form it takes, remember Yolanda's wisdom. Your broken places aren't the end of your story, they're the beginning of a new chapter. The world doesn't need more people pretending to be perfect. It needs more people brave enough to be broken and beautiful at the same time. It needs you, all of you, with your scars and your strength, your pain and your purpose. Because when we transform our pain into purpose, we don't just heal ourselves, we create ripples of healing that touch lives we may never even meet. And in a world as wounded as ours, there is no work more urgent, no calling more sacred than this. Thank you.